the Godness Podcast, where we discuss conscious and uplifting topics to help us all along our spiritual journeys. My name is Brianna, spiritual mentor, quantum healer, and your host here and owner of the Godness Community. So today, you guys, we have a wonderful topic. We're going to be discussing something very near and dear to my heart, which is soul alignment. How to activate soul alignment to live in an authentic life. So I want to discuss this topic with you all because this is one of my greatest missions that I've just received some tremendous clarity on. So, when you feel like there's something more that you're supposed to be doing, that you want to help people, that you want to show up and make a difference and create a positive impact on the world, but you're not exactly sure how to pinpoint it. So you try different things out, right? You allow yourself to be exposed to just worlds of opportunities, experiencing different things to find out what's your thing. And I just finally realized, not even finally, but I just came into this deeper understanding of myself that I am here to help you align with your soul, to help you understand how to more clearly live out the multitude of purposes that your soul came here to experience in this lifetime, so that you can live an authentic life that feels good for you. So I'm really excited to share this with you, and I want to share in this is actually going to be part one. We're going to break it up because I want to share with you guys more about me, more about my story, and how I was able to go from living a chaotic, anxious-filled, unfulfilling, unsatisfied life where I was constantly in fight or flight. I was constantly having this swirling feeling in my chest area every single day. And I had lived that way for so long, you guys, that I thought that was normal. That was my normal day to day. It wasn't until I reached out to it was until I actually listened to a podcast of Elizabeth Carson and Billy Carson. And Elizabeth was talking about how she went through this process of neurofeedback training. Okay. So neurofeedback is a process of scanning your brain to see how well your brain is functioning. Right. And then when you go through the actual training, helping your brain to function more optimally, right? So when they scan your brain, they can scan your brain for anxiety, high stress, low self-esteem, not having enough energy, lack of energy to actually do things. So it can scan your brain for all of these things. And so when I heard that podcast, I decided to look into neurofeedback training. So that led me to a wonderful office here in where I am. It's a little bit further from me in Manassas, Virginia. It's called Dr. Carlton's Neurofeedback Center. I believe that's what it is. I'll drop it down in the description below. But if you're in the area or nearby, I would definitely check out Dr. Carlton's neurofeedback training. So anywho, I ended up there. And after getting my brain scan, which is called a brain mapping, it shows you different areas of your brain, different functionalities. But the main thing that stood out to me was the fact that I was highly anxious, right? And so Dr. Carlton starts asking me all these questions about how I feel just on a day-to-day. I'm telling him, and he's asking me about how I feel on a day-to-day and what I do on the day-to-day, right? So I'm telling him I'm working, as an executive director. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I do this, that, and the third throughout the day. I start my day 6 a.m. I'm going to bed maybe 12, a.m. So in between there, getting up in between the night with the kids, because I had, at the time, my youngest was probably 6 months or so at that time. And then my oldest was about 2.5 at that time. So getting up with them in the middle of the night, basically, and amongst a lot of other things, right? The high stress from the job that I was working at that time. And then just regular old pressures of the day. And one of the things I talked to him about as well was just that I had so many thoughts. I felt like I could not organize my thoughts at that time because they were always racing and I was always trying to keep up. And a lot of times my thoughts would be negative. I was giving myself negative self-talk within my thoughts because in my mind, like if I can't keep up, then I'm doing something wrong because I should be able to keep up, right? And I was constantly thinking about the next thing that I had to do. And that caused me a great sense of just anxiety. And so what I would do prior to me learning this was just take deep breaths and just like breathe through any situation and pray my way through it. That was literally my TLC. I never took breaks, nothing like that. I just kept going, right? So Dr. Carlton was like, wow, I can't believe that you've been just functioning like this. He said, because most people, when they were functioning at the level in which it was showing on my map, they would typically go into some sort of like have like panic attacks, right? Anxiety attacks and things like that. And I told him, I said, well, I don't know. This has just, been my experience. So that was a really big sign for me in understanding that the way that I was living, the way that I was going about things, the way that I was constantly in fight or flight, like that was not okay. And also that there was a reason why I was feeling that way. One of the things was I was lacking self-care, right? So taking breaks to myself. I was also seeing a therapist at this time, and she asked me like, Brianna, when is the last time you just taken an hour and done nothing? And I thought to myself, I'm like, I don't do that. And I don't do that because I have too much to do. Ironically, right? I don't take breaks because I have too much to do to take a break, right? So it taught me that what I thought was self-care, or I didn't understand that for myself, and I wasn't caring for myself in the way that I should. And it also showed me that there had to be balance placed within my life, and there absolutely was not. Okay. So I started doing neurofeedback trainings, right? So I did 30 sessions to help me in helping my brain function more optimally, okay? Which naturally brought down my level of anxiety. And one of the other things too that I wanted to achieve through neurofeedback training was I was trading full time in the stock market. So I also wanted to be like more calm throughout trades and things of that nature. So that was actually what triggered me outside of me watching Elizabeth and Billy Carson's podcast video. I was like, okay, great. This will really help me in trading, right? So that was probably my number one reason when I went there. It turned into a lot more once I actually got the brain map and discovered what was actually going on internally, and the fact that that was not normal, or it was normal for me, but it wasn't healthy, right? And that was putting me on, I was on an unhealthy track when it came to how I was managing my own stress. Okay. So again, really literally went in there thinking, okay, this is going to be great because I'm going to be able to trade better and stuff like that, right? But it opened up a whole new world for me, because when you're doing this type of training, it's like the synapses in your brain that were not fired before, it helps them to fire. You're able to deal with the stresses of life, more calmly. So that was probably the biggest thing that I actually got out of neurofeedback training, is like the calm feeling. So before I went to neurofeedback training, I used to have this big swirl, this huge swirl. And that's a big indicator for all of us, right? If you feel like there's a hurricane or a tornado going off in your chest at all times, that's a huge sign that you are overstressed, that you have anxiety, that you are in fight or flight. And if you stay in that, right, it damages every single part of you. Okay. So that was my biggest takeaway from that. And it really helped me in expanding too spiritually. So this was something I was also not really expecting, but spiritually, because it really brought to the forefront the inner issues that I was experiencing, right? So it's like, okay, why are you in fight or flight? Why are you so anxious, right? So the one thing that I mentioned before was the self-care. But beyond that, what in my life did not align, okay? What was not aligning with who I truly am? What is it that's actually causing me to feel this way constantly outside of just caring for myself? And so I noticed that prior year, I had this experience where when I was working full time, constantly feeling anxious, sad, worried. And I got this message from my spirit, but I loved the job. That was the thing. Like, I loved it, but I also hated it at the same time. I loved the overall mission of the company. I loved having the title of executive director. I loved showing up for my team. Like, I love that aspect of it, and I love showing up for the community. That aspect of it was amazing. But on the back end, there was so much weight that I felt from, just being in that position, as well as just taking on a multitude of things at that particular time, that it was really daunting for me. And I felt like I really didn't have room for anything outside of that. And I was constantly trying to like prove myself in that particular job. So I was unhappy there. And I felt like, even though when I initially came into that position, I knew that I was supposed to do that. Like, I knew that God literally led me there. I remember when I went to apply for that. When I initially applied, I applied for an internship, right? And I was like, I was guided to do that. Like, my spirit was guiding me to do that. And I was like, I didn't want to, because internship means, like, this particular internship was not paid. So I had never done something like that to work basically for free. So I applied for it, and I said, well, you know what, God, if this is what you want me to do, this is what I'm going to do, and that's that. So that's where I was at that time. Currently, also, I was also in my Christian faith at that time too. So just tagging that in there so you can kind of follow along with all the changes that have evolved throughout time. But I said, yeah, God, if this is what you want me to do, I'm going to apply for it, and then you work it out, on the back end, right? So get the job, work my way up into a paid position, work my way up throughout the company. But then when I got to this point, after about a year and a half of being there, and I'm super stressed out, I'm in love with the overall concept of it, but in complete distress about what it actually takes, to do that job on a day to day. And so my spirit said to me, like, it's time to leave, right? And so I was so afraid of letting go of this position, right? Because I was so intertwined and emotionally just intertwined and wrapped up in the vision for this. I poured, my heart into helping to create this. So I just had a love for it, basically. And so it was really hard for me to let go. And then again, I told you, like, I loved the title of my position. I loved showing up for the community, for my team. And so I was just like, what is going to happen? Oh yeah. And then also just taking that portion of the income away from the household. Like, what is that going to look like? Like, what in the world? So, it was a really, really tough decision for me to make. And I remember the night before I sent in my resignation letter, I had this, what I would call, I don't know, just this, like, straight up distress, panic. It wasn't like spiritual psychosis, but it was like, I felt like I was being spiritually attacked. Okay. And I was just panicking. Like, so I had already gotten the message that I was supposed to leave, but I was really, really, really putting it off, right? I had the resignation letter already drawn up, but I just hadn't really decided to do it, to actually push the button, right? Now, when this event is happening, again, it was literally the night before I actually ended up sending in the resignation letter. So that night, I just start panicking, like, full blast, just heart palpitations. I felt like somebody was coming to, like, harm me or harm my family. I started taking, when you take like oil, I got some olive oil out of the cabinet, literally blessed the oil, y'all. Listen, bless the oil. And then I literally just rubbed the oil on myself, on my family. Everyone was sleeping at this time. I rubbed oil on them. I rubbed oil just on the doors. I really felt like someone was coming to literally attack us. But I was going through what you can actually call it was like you can call it a panic attack, just me being spiritually out of line, and just that energy, because all of this is energy, right? All of that energy just pent up inside of me, just boiling over and spilling over, right? And creating this scene that wasn't real. It was just my own fears coming out. It was my own fears, my own insecurities at that time, my own just, I was just afraid to walk away. Um, and I was going against myself, knowing that it was time for me to exit. So as strong as it was when I came into that position, knowing that I was supposed to be there, this was probably a million times stronger, the sign and the messages that it was time to leave. Okay. And so I went through that. And then the very next day, I put in my resignation letter, and that set off a series of events where I realized I was cutting out everything that did not align with who I truly am. Okay. And I didn't understand it at that time. But as I have come more into myself, come more into alignment with my soul, I understand how all of these things have unfolded perfectly for me to be in alignment with who I truly am and to show up as my authentic self and to give my space the freedom to do that. So I feel that what I've learned, actually, I feel, and what I have learned is that what we're feeling emotionally, what we're feeling physically are all signs. They're all um like navigation signals to show you where you are, to give you signs of like where you are, and where you're in the disconnect between where you are and where you're supposed to be, right? So if you're feeling that swirl, that tornado, that hurricane in your chest, that's a sign. And we really want to pay attention to those things, because that is your spirit speaking to you, and your body is giving you a physical sign to let you know that there is something wrong. I think that the corporate culture, Hollywood culture, slave culture tells you that you have to keep going, that you have to keep your head down, that you have to press forward, that you're supposed to be in this constant fight or flight. They don't call it that. They just call it hard work, right? They call it hard work, and they call it working your way up or waiting your turn or whatever the term is at that time. However, I challenge you, right? When we are really looking to move into soul alignment and truly live an authentic life, I challenge you to throw all that out and just listen to yourself. Because when you really think about this language, when it's like put your head down or wait your turn, or you just need to work your way up, or whatever the case is, right? You need to accept the way that you're being treated, mistreated, in order to stick around for some potential opportunity. When you listen to this language, it is very disempowering language. And it is language that makes you feel small. It is language that makes you feel like in your gut, like this doesn't feel right in my body. And so we have to challenge ourselves to listen to that, in spite of what we've heard, in spite of what pop culture, Hollywood culture, corporate culture, slave culture that has literally seeped into all of these different avenues. And that's how I see it, right? It's literally slave culture that has gone into corporate culture, into politics, into Hollywood culture, into all of these things, right? To where we have normalized mistreatment. We have normalized going against ourselves, going against ourselves. And that's one thing I want to circle back to too. At this, like when I described where I was at that time after leaving that job and stuff, right? Then and there also, I was in the Christian faith at the time, right? I grew up Christian. That was my faith at the time. My biggest issue with Christianity, or with my personal experience with Christianity, was the constant battle between self, right? The constant battle between being a sinner and being righteous, okay? And this constant battle of wanting to strive and achieve righteousness and salvation, right? In order to be saved, in order to make it into heaven, right? So I personally, like some of the things that I naturally like dancing and just being like sensual and my own way of just like expressing myself, to me, that felt wrong. That felt like dirty, or like that's not the way that you're supposed, like a woman of God is supposed to uphold themselves. December of 2022, right when I had my spiritual awakening, I was wrapping up a Bible study cohort. Like I was committed and in love with my faith and love with Jesus. And I still do, love Jesus as the being, as the consciousness, as the God being that Jesus is within itself. I just now know for myself that we are all these God beings. And, excuse me. And that there's no one way to God, but God is within us, right? So we all have our own individual godness, which is our God essence, right? It's the way that God expresses itself through each of us individually. So that's our own individual essence, okay? But yeah, I constantly felt like this battle between myself. I was wrapping up Bible study in December of 2022 when I had left that job a few months prior to this. And I was just in a place where I was just like, you know what? I was going through therapy, going through the neurofeedback training. So at this point, I'm just like, you know what? I feel like there's nothing to ask for at this point in my faith and where it was. I was just like, you know what, God, I don't want anything. I'm not asking for anything. All I want to do is get to know you better. I want to understand you more. I feel like there's some sort of like disconnect. I got the book, right? I go to church, right? I tithe, right? I do this, I do that. I'm doing all the things, but there is something missing. There's like a disconnection and I want to connect. Okay. So that led me to going down this rabbit hole of spirituality, of the history of the Bible, of all these different things that really expanded my consciousness and basically triggered my awakening. Okay. So there was nothing bad that happened to me. I was literally just in a season where I just wanted to understand God more. And that was my prayer. And after I prayed that prayer, a lot of revelation was shown to me. Okay. Now, once I got this revelation, I was completely just shocked and hurt. And I was like in this state of like mourning, my faith. And I remember programming a dream. Okay. This is something that I talked about briefly in one of our episodes before, mind control. And I will tag that so that you guys can listen to that as well. But programming a dream is basically a method of like something that you say to yourself in a meditative state before sleep so that you can have a dream about that particular thing. Okay. So it is a creative way to actually give intention to the dreams that you have so that it's not only just, what's the word? Random, right? You're actually giving an attention, you're giving an instruction. So that night I programmed a dream while I'm in this state of just like, oh my goodness, like what is happening? And so what I said, I asked for God I said to God, I said, okay, God, I understand that what I believed before, that's not true, right? So show me who you are, how it is that we connect with you, we the people, like how do people connect with you? And how do people connect? And it was all just like outlines, so like outlines of people in light. And then inside of the people were like small numbers, like sequences of numbers, like similar to what you saw like on the Matrix movie, like that. Okay. And then there was this light, this like burst of like ball of light that started coming up individually between all of these, through each of these individuals, right? So this light was coming up through them. Okay. So when I woke up, I knew exactly what the meaning of it was. So the interpretation basically is that God is within us, right? And like the number sequences showed me that we all have like our own God code, okay? Like our own God genetic makeup that is all like these individual sequences that are like specific and very like unique to us as individuals. And the place that you go to speak to God, or that you go for answers, or that you go to commune with God, is within yourself, because you are one with this divine source. Okay. And so that let me know that there is no one book, that you can pull from different books and different scriptures and all sorts of things to pull from the consciousness that it came from. So what I mean by that is that we all have our divine code, our divine makeup. So whoever wrote the Bible, right, it had to go through their own interpretation, right? It went through their own divine code, their own divine makeup. Does that take away from the messaging in the book? No. But it does let you know that you have to use your own spirit, right? Your own divine code, your own divine makeup to discern what is for you and what is not for you. Okay. And to never let someone tell you like, no, this is the way, this is the truth, and that's just it. And you innately feel something is wrong with that. And then you're just like, hey, that's what they say, so I'm just going to go along with it, right? That's another thing. Like, you really coming to a space, for me, I had to learn to come to a space where I trusted my intuition. So beforehand in Christianity, when I had a question or when I didn't understand something or didn't agree with something that was like biblical, I would be like, I would feel that in my body, right? I would feel that that is wrong, right? But then I would tell myself, I would correct myself, because this is what I've been taught. This is what I've been told. This is what I have been holding my entire life. So I must be wrong, right? So coming into a space where you trust yourself, to trust your intuition, to trust your gut, to trust that when you read something and it does not feel right in your body, to analyze that, right? To ask yourself why, and to get to the source of what that is. And if something does not align with you, being okay with saying, that does not align with me, even if the entire world tells you that you are wrong. Okay. So that is what that dream really spoke to me, really taught me. And that gave me enough like strength to just like continue discovering, continuously allowing myself to, what I would call just like remembering myself, right? Because it was just like my spiritual journey has just been a continual discovery of myself, and me giving myself permission to be myself. Okay. And really listening to the calling of my soul and allowing myself to get in alignment with that, even when it looks boohoo crazy. Okay. And I understand that. Like, I know where I'm sitting. Like, I know that me going from, the Christian faith to this, I know that me jumping into, when I was 22 years old, like me quitting my job back then, okay, to jump into entrepreneurship and doing things here and there. Like, I knew that was crazy too, right? When I left that last job that I described to you guys, that I worked for a year and a half, like I knew what it looked like. But even before my spiritual awakening, I have always been bold enough to be afraid of something and to face that fear and to go to the other side of it. Now, since my spiritual awakening, it has only, increased the boldness, the audacity that I have. The boldness and the audacity that I have has just only gotten greater. And I love who I am, and I love sharing my story in this space in Godness community and my gifts as a quantum healer with the community, because I love seeing other people get into alignment with themselves and feeling like their truest selves, feeling good in their bodies, like feeling in alignment, mind, body, and soul. And to me, that's really what it's all about. So that was an amazing just awakening for me, and it helped me understand how to connect with my soul self throughout, by having that dream. And that really, like I said, just really sparked me continuously diving into discovering myself and furthering my spiritual expansion. So it has been such an incredible journey, but I wanted to share that with you all, because spiritual spiritual awakenings, but more so coming into alignment with yourself, it can be very uncomfortable. You have to peel back, a lot of layers. I've gone through a lot of like healing, going through my own healing sessions, which I have shared, openly here on the podcast, right? Getting in alignment with your soul causes you to have to peel back the layers, right? So the process within itself can be uncomfortable, because you have to be real with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be authentic with you first before you can show up as the authentic you with everyone else. And that process can be a bit, tough, it can be tough breaking down those layers, but it is so worth it. And I really want you to take a moment to think about whatever felt when I was expressing, like when I was not aligned with myself, when I was feeling all the anxiety, when I was going through all of these motions, really pay attention to what aligns with you, what you may be experiencing at this time, and give yourself permission to really open yourself up to getting to the core of those things, right? So that you can also continue to process and continue to reveal and heal what needs to be in this season, right? And give yourself permission to trust what it is that you know. Okay. Trust what it is that you know, that you feel in your mind, your body, your soul, what comes to you, the messages, right? And that too, like I was saying, like my spirit was literally speaking to me, telling me like, it's time to go. It's time to, transition, right? We have to be willing to listen to our spirit, because it's really the deepest version of who you are, the truest version, the highest frequency of you, guiding you to what it is that you truly desire and who it is that you truly are. So taking out culture, right, and focusing on the inner self, the soul. Okay. And in the next episode, we're going to dive more into some more practical ways of actually identifying, when you're out of alignment, and getting and some practices to bring you back into alignment. We'll talk through some things when it comes to releasing some of that pent up energy, some of that anxiety in your body, right? Getting yourself out of fight or flight, right? And into flow. So out of fight or flight and into the state of flow, okay? Which is where you're waking up with, you feel good in your body, okay? You wake up, you feel good in your body. You're recognizing the synchronicities, right? Because it's all energy. It's all working together, right? So you'll recognize those things, those synchronicities, those signs when you are in alignment, or even when you're not in alignment. You'll see the signs to tell you, again, like in your body, when it's time to shift. Okay. All right, you guys. So I think we're going to stop here for part one of how to activate soul alignment to live an authentic life. Okay. I would love for you all to share with me about your own journeys to soul alignment, what that looks like for you. Do you currently feel like you are in alignment with your soul? Do you feel like you are living a life that you wake up and you are happy about? Do you feel like you're being your true authentic self, or do you feel like you're taking the necessary steps in order to do that? Okay. And if you have any questions for me as to what it is that you're experiencing, feel free to drop those down in the comments below. I would love to share with you, or to just hear your stories and to communicate with you further in those areas, and to offer you any guidance that I can. Okay. And I also want to invite, for those of you who are interested in quantum healing soul sessions, you can go to godnesscommunity.com and book with me directly, and we can help to align your chakras, to pull out any negative programming that no longer serves your highest good, right? Reprogramming things and getting you aligned. Okay. So you can so you can just go over to godnesscommunity.com and check that out. But I do want to invite everyone to join the community if you are not already a part, by going to godnesscommunity.com/join. You just enter in your email, you'll go on our list, and you'll receive our weekly newsletter, invitation to our private community meditations. I'm going to start something called Read the Room, where we're reading the room for the community. So like collective messages specifically for our particular community and the room at that time. So we have a lot of really fun, amazing things coming up. And then we even have this cool quiz that we just released last week, which is, what's your chakra superpower? So it lets you know which one of your chakras are you currently fueling your own personal fire at this time. And then it also gives you guidance on how to harness that power even greater and to experience more flow without within all of your chakras. Okay, so you can go to godnesscommunity.com/quiz. All of these links will be down in the description below. But thank you all so much. I love you and I appreciate you for listening to this episode. Join me in 2 weeks for our next episode of how to activate soul alignment to live an authentic life. And that will be part 2. So until then, you all, love you, and I'll see you in the next episode.